going, Stacy?
It's going good. How about you?
Good. It's going good.
Diane could be a few minutes late. For some reason, she thinks she can make it from Revere to Dorchester in 25 minutes going through Boston. And
The
she's
roads
the
were
math
clear, I bet she
expert.
could. But if no one else was on the road, she could probably do it faster.
Yeah,
Depending on how she drives.
I know, huh?
But yeah, no chance of it right now.
I doubt it. I mean, and she just left about 5 minutes ago.
Just realized my camera wasn't on.
There you go. It's on now.
In my pink paradise. Oh, Stacy, I got an email from Susan that she's not able to make today's meeting, so I'm hoping that maybe you might be able to fill in to start up the meeting later.
You're on mute, Stacy.
Yeah, Susan gave me a heads up and Diane might be a couple of minutes late.
I'm here. I'm just in the car, so I'm leaving the camera off.
Oh, so how's the traffic?
Worse than I thought it would be.
Well, look at the time. What did you think?
I know. I know.
You're not really that good of a math teacher, were you?
Linda, I know you like to keep track of names you might not recognize and any public viewers. Just wanted to let you know Nell Dawes is with Perkins Eastman. You may have met her before, but she's active part of our project team.
Excellent. Thank you for letting me know.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Nell.
She's got a cool accent too. I haven't placed it yet myself.
That's putting her on the spot too.
Yeah, is it new?
West
She's
Coast
supposed
of
to tell
Australia.
you?
Aha, West Coast of Australia. Nice. I think
It's
that's
a Revere accent.
Revere doesn't have an accent. Everyone else does.
Oh, no. Yeah. Doesn't exist. No.
Excuse me, I have ears.
It's the only town where I have an R at the end of my first name. right, let's see here, we've got
We-
1, 2,
6, I'm getting, I think.
3, 4, 5. Just when I was counting, all the screens shifted. Let me do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 so far, so we need one more.
Well, before we start up, I'll address the white elephant in the room and say, sorry for having a meeting on St. Patrick's Day. We'll get that out of the way.
Maybe that's why 3 people have already canceled.
Motion to adjourn.
You call. Yeah.
Nope, we need one more. I know Jennifer Hayes and Susan and Mike Picardi are not going to be able to make it today.
Is there anybody who's not on that somebody who is on could nudge?
Ms. Gay just arrived.
Hey, Rich, can you hear us? Are you the RJV iPad?
That's me.
Ah,
Awesome,
success.
welcome. That's 7.
That is 7. Stacy, would you mind kicking this off and reminder you're on mute?
I would love to get this party started. So good evening. It's March 17th, 2022. It is currently 5:36. And this is the 31st meeting for the Revere High School project. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, I will do the roll call, and just a reminder that we are also recording. So I'm going to start the roll call with Mike Picardi, who emailed that he is absent, and Mayor Arrigo, I'm going to note as absent. Stacy Rizzo,
Here,
Susan Gravellisi is absent. Dr. Kelly.
Didn't hear you, Dr. Kelly.
Uh-oh,
She's in the tunnel.
I think we just lost her. I will continue down the list and then we'll jump back. Carl Svensson,
Here.
John Perella,
Here.
Jennifer Hayes, I know is also absent. Rich Viscay,
Here.
Don Ciramella. I don't see him either. Nick Rystrom,
Here.
Jerry Visconti,
Here.
and Patrick Keefe. I don't see either, so I'm going to note him as absent. Dr. Kelly.
Dr. Kelly, we can see you, but you're on mute. Let us know if you can hear us. Well, we can see your name.
Yes, here,
This-
sorry.
No worries.
Yep.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. All right, we will jump into some housekeeping items. First off, we have meeting minutes from our last meeting, which will be the February 24th. February 24th meeting minutes.
Motion to approve February 24th minutes.
Motion to approve made by Stacy Rizzo. Do we have a second?
I'm
Stacy,
sorry, can I
you
can't.
cannot
I'm
make the motion.
sorry. I can't make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
Dr. Kelly made the motion, Carl Svensson second. Thank you for the reminder. All right, and we will do a roll call for approval of meeting minutes by Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
John Perella,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti.
Yes.
February invoices, they were attached to the email. I can put them up on the screen if somebody's uncertain. We will start with the February invoice for Left Field, which covers professional services from February 1st through the 28th in the amount of $21,000. Do we have a motion to approve for processing?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Rich, and second by Carl Svensson. And we will do yet another roll call for approval, starting with Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
John Perella,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
and Jerry Visconti.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. We will move to the next invoice, which is Perkins Eastman's invoice for February services, which is in the amount of $45,727.50. Do we have a motion to approve that invoice?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you very much. And roll call for Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
John Perella,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
and Jerry Visconti.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That brings us on to much more fun things than housekeeping items. So, Brian, will you take it away?
Don, do you want me to jump into it, or Don or Dan? Who wants to drive just real quick? Because I have a few slides to cover, and then Perkins Eastman's gonna be running a little bit of an update here. I can put it on the screen.
I think I'm in charge of this.
It's on you, Dan. Yep, I can
think
handle
it's on
the
me.
few slides. Yep.
Okay, let me,
Construction manager at risk, the CMR or CMAR, as you hear a lot of us talk about it. We have the Inspector General application to proceed is going in the morning. It's basically done. It was pretty much done a week and a half ago, but I wanted to get the MSBA report in and make sure some of the details we had and they were tied into the report. So we're going to be running the procurement of the general contractor in parallel to getting Inspector General approval to proceed. So basically, this is the quickest way we can do it. And Dan, if you could click forward, there's just a few dates. 2 meetings ago, we established a subcommittee for general contractor CMR selection as Mayor Rego, Nick, Don, Carl, and Jerry. And we'll be sending out some emails to that subcommittee to basically show some of these documents that are going to get on the street. But we're going to have everything advertised next week. And the March 24th is pretty much when we have to have everything into the central register, but we'll also be coordinating a Revere Journal ad. Long story short, you can almost zoom to the bottom of this. I'm not going to go through each date, but we'll keep the committee posted on all these interim steps. We're shooting for somewhere around May 18th to get some subcommittee meeting or meetings together to pre-qualify these firms. This is a 2-step procurement process. We have to qualify general contractors, then we issue them a request for proposals, and then we select one based on the proposal. So this first screen is really about pre-qualifying. We're going to launch it in the coming week, and we look to be getting the committee together to pre-qualify folks that plus or minus April 18th. If you could click forward, Dan. Thank you. The second phase of this is actually issuing the RFP, the request for proposals. After we pre-qualify, only those pre-qualified contractors will be able to reply and apply for the job. We look to get that all launched by pretty soon, right after we determine who's qualified, who's not. Chances are most of the firms that qualify are going to be the ones that know they can handle it, but we might have some folks that are a little too small for this job that might not get pre-qualified. Once we have the pre-qualified field, we'll issue the RFP to those firms. And again, just zooming down, there's a lot of interim deadlines here, but zooming down to the bottom at some point in the middle of May 12th through May 17th is where we have it on the calendar. We're going to convene that subcommittee and do interviews and make some final decisions, a recommendation back to this committee to take on a specific construction manager. So we will coordinate a building committee meeting for right around these middle of May, 3rd week of May dates. And ultimately the recommendation from that subcommittee will come back to this committee. At that point, we will have a contractor on board to help us out with the rest of schematic design, pre-construction, estimating, logistics, et cetera. Any questions on CMR? Again, I'm going to be reaching out to the mayor, Nick, Don, Carl, and Jerry about some details here. But for now, we just wanted the building committee to be familiar with the sequence and the dates here.
Brian, a couple meetings back, we were talking about the cost of the CM at risk and also the ED costs and survey costs, et cetera. Do you have a spreadsheet tonight, or can you, get us one that sort of shows where we are with these costs and the remainder of the budget for feasibility?
Sure. We don't have one tonight, Joe, but I can circulate it. And long story short, we put some costs in front of the building committee a handful of weeks ago. Everything related to eminent domain, which right now means hiring a firm to do a land use study, appraisals, and legal services, is being borne by the city. That leaves the project and the money that we have available to hire the CM and to get some of the testing done if we can during SD. So we're in pretty good shape because that eminent domain process is being basically covered outside of the feasibility study budget. But I can't put together an estimate. What I will say is we're all pretty confident after talking amongst ourselves and talking with some of the CMs out there that the cost for these pre-con services, at least for the next 6-7 months, schematic design, we pretty much can name our price. And we're probably gonna put it out there somewhere in the realm of $25,000 to $30,000 for the SD phase. That works with our budget. It leaves some money for testing and other items. But we did a little bit of calling around, and generally speaking, the big CMs know that they'll take this on, even if we're squeezing them a little bit upfront. So bottom line, we think a feasibility study can afford all this, especially being that the eminent domain stuff is covered outside of the budget, but we'll have we'll circulate a little update on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on CMR? If not, we can move it along.
I'm going to skip right past that intro slide. We're kind of gearing up to start up the user group meetings and the SD kind of work plan meetings and working group meetings as well as user groups. So one of the things I wanted to do tonight was introduce some of these meetings that I'm trying to schedule, and this is my suggested schedule, which I hope everyone can do. I've already reached out to try to set up the first site meeting, this engineering meeting next Wednesday with Nick and Don and whomever else would be interested in that. And I think tonight, if we could set up some of these working groups that we've spoken about before and try to solidify that. And also if everyone could give me some feedback, if my time choices, you can see I'm aiming for like an earlier morning or kind of after school block, like a 2 to 3, and early in the morning, like a 9. I could do earlier than that if we need to, but that's usually a pretty decent start time if those times are okay. And then as it relates to overall user group interviews and user interviews for the school staff, we'd like to know who is going to, on the district side, coordinate all those meetings for Dawn and Bob and whoever else on our team is going to run those meetings. There's a lot of those, and those are scheduled to happen, or we'd like to have those start to happen soon. So there's a whole bunch of questions there.
I can work with Amber Dakin on the coordination and, making sure there's a room available and notices go out and all of that. And I know that Jen, who couldn't be here tonight, wants to be on the interiors, exteriors working group.
And she reached out to Linda, and so we can just start a list.
Okay.
Or have a point person that controls a list for their group. However, you want to organize it. I think the hope was that we'd get a point person for each one that we could reach out to and coordinate. But tell me if you think differently, Dan or Brian.
No, I think that's fine. And if Jen can be the interiors working group point person, I know Carl is the MEP working group point person. We want to have one for site because the site is highly complicated and there's a lot of things going on. And I think that's warrants a working group here, and maybe a separate person for exteriors and then another for sustainability.
I'd like to nominate Stacy for the sustainability working group. I know she's been doing a lot of work in that area, if she doesn't mind taking that on.
Stacy, does that sound okay with you? Because we don't necessarily need motions for any of these. We just
No.
want to know who to bother.
I know who to bother. Yep.
Diane, you're such a giving person. I was double checking the day to make sure I was available, but I'm sure with Diane's guidance, I'll could be very successful. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome.
And Stacy,
I just like to recognize people's talents, Stacy.
Yeah, okay.
Stacy, I think
yeah.
there's flexibility on this, Dan, right? You were
Yes,
just trying to put
These are
something
just,
down.
I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
something out there so we can
This-
have something to talk about. And if these work,
It's not set in stone. Stacy.
excellent, but they're not set in stone. And Stacy, if you
no
could try
problem.
to kind of collect some more people who you think would be good for this committee, or this, that would be good. That'd be excellent if you could.
Yeah, I'll also add,
maybe 4 or
Absolutely.
5 people.
it's always good to have people, even though you think it might not be your specialty. So many of these things connect back to the educational or energy
Absolutely.
goals. And, to keep them on the forefront, we need to have a diverse conversation, of
Mhm.
people.
It's related to sustainability. Can I ask a question? I was digging around on the city's website the other day and couldn't find anything. Is there a city sustainability director or role of someone in the city that might be able to participate in this? Does anyone
There
know?
might be one or two, might not be under that name, but I
Okay.
think there may be one or two people that could help us out with that.
Okay, I know in the larger master plan, there was a lot of talk about sustainability, resiliency, et cetera. But then when it came to like who, I couldn't find anything. So I've looked a couple times. So if Stacy, if you know of someone or have a connection, by all means, anytime we can weave into the city's greater goals with this project, that would be really helpful. And or reach out to resources. So yeah, that'd be great.
No problem.
And I'd just like to throw in that, like, we're looking for a point person from the committee for this. Part of what we'd like that point person to help us with for any topic, whether it's MEP or sustainability, interiors, exterior site, is help us understand who from the city, who from the school, who's not on this committee should be involved with these meetings. These are really intended as working meetings. It doesn't have to be restricted to committee members. It shouldn't be. And a lot of them that engage education will have all sorts of people from the school from. So I think really, like, I'm not sure if Dawn and Dan, you agree or disagree. It looks like we have what we need, except maybe for a point person for site design and exterior design. And I think site design is something that maybe talking about who the right person to try to filter that through. It's all going to come back to this committee. Exterior design, maybe folks can mull over a little more. But site design is one that I know we're going to be getting hot and heavy on very fast.
I think we need someone to be assigned to that at this meeting. Exterior can wait.
In the site, we're always, again, going to involve folks from the school. So I might even just throw out there for conversation. It might be good to have the person who's coordinating site be one of the folks from the city. And I hate to put people on the spot, but Nick, Dawn, some other folks that are on the public works end of the site might be a good person to help us work through some of that. Because I mean, there's site finishes and amenities, but a lot of this site is going to be how do we handle and how do we lay it out so that we're dealing with stormwater correctly, et cetera.
There's a lot of things underground here too that connect back to the city and serve the city in some other capacity. So I think that it'd be good
I
to.
feel like,
Brian, I can be the point person for that. This is Nick speaking.
Yep. And anything related to this technical stuff, Carl's going to be involved too. Other folks from the school are going to be involved, but I think that I like it being someone who knows the inner workings of how we technically have to pull this off. So if folks don't have an objection, Nick, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Okay, great. So we've got 4 out of 5. We'll wait for number 5.
what's the fifth one again?
Exterior,
We're really talking building there, exterior design.
building exterior. Yep.
Yep, aesthetics, yep.
And that one again, that can wait a little bit.
I'll put
That
in a
doesn't-
pitch. That's one of the most fun.
It is.
It is.
That and interiors, they can arm wrestle over who has the most fun.
You see, we don't get to that. We don't
pick
get to
me,
one
pick
of those till
me.
April.
Coincidence that I'm gonna be running those two, but
I think I just heard Stacy volunteer to do that one also.
yeah, she could do too.
I can be part of a team.
Okay.
All right,
Perfect.
awesome. We'll take that. Thanks, Stacy.
So
I had her at fun, I think.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I think that Susan's not here, but I bet if she was here, she would volunteer to do that as well.
Okay, well, maybe Susan and Stacy can collaborate and figure out.
Who should
Who's
be
got
on,
the
who else
time
should be
and-
on that?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they can certainly both be on it, and maybe one is the point person and,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
great.
Joe, were you gonna say
Dan.
something?
Dan, just to confirm all this, will you be sort of publishing, okay, here's our leads, telling them what the deadline is for filling out their teams, just so, you know, we leave this meeting where it's very clear to everyone who's the lead of what, when they have to have a team together, et cetera, because a lot of moving parts here.
What I'm hoping, Joe, is that we can hit these 4 meetings, that I can get that out tomorrow or Monday. But we can all agree that these 4 meetings are gonna happen next week, that Carl will be ready for a MEP meeting on Tuesday, and Nick will have a group ready on Wednesday and Friday for the site.
Well, good that you tell them now.
And what size of a team would be appropriate for each of these? Are we looking at like 3 or 4 people? Plus
I
the
think
lead, so 5
feels like
total?
maybe 5. I was thinking maybe 5, so it's between 5 and 7.
Okay,
7 being on the high end. But it depends. I mean, I think the site could definitely support 7, depending on what the expertise are that are being brought to the table.
I was going to say that, at least I think this is true in working groups, that, you know, as you need expertise, if there's like a city
Yep, can
engineer or someone that you need to bring in to be part of the discussion, but they're not on the building committee,
Mhm.
you know, using them as a resource. That's why I was asking about any sustainability director or anyone on that end from the city, that, you know, they can have a voice at the table and participate with their expertise. So,
Yeah, I would fully expect that the other 4 or 5 people are not on this committee. They're other people who are interested in the site or have expertise or knowledge about the site or that area of the city, or for that site group. Same goes for the other groups.
yeah, so, for example, Tech Lang, who is the city planner,
Mhm.
understands what the long-term planning is to the city, and all of that would probably be a good person to have on the site committee.
that's perfect.
And I'm
Yep.
sure Nick has some people in his department, or Donnie would, that can facilitate with that as well.
Exactly,
Okay.
and I think a lot of these meetings are gonna be, very few of these are one-shot deals, so a lot of it might be
Mhm.
sitting down with the point people next week, whoever can make it, and those people will probably leave that meeting saying, you know what, I need to get X, Y, and Z people involved next time, or get some, that's sort of the goal, is to really debrief on what we need and have the folks from the city who know some of these different departments and places within the school to bring other folks to into the fold in the next number of months.
Yeah, in the case of the site, I want to get all the questions and concerns that are out there on the table, and have an action plan to answer those questions and attack those concerns.
So as long as I'm volunteering everybody for stuff, I think it would be good to have either Jerry Visconti or Pat Keefe on that team as well, because they're gonna have the perspective of the city council.
On the site one?
Yeah,
Thanks, Diane.
Jerry, anytime I can help you.
You're doing
let me
a
know.
hell of a job. let me tell you.
Stay long enough.
I do think that's important.
Should we nominate Pat? He's not here.
There you go.
I think we should. Yeah.
I think we should too. How's
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
And we'll blame Diane for that.
Listen, I'm just trying to have the right voices in the right places so that this can go as smoothly as possible.
I'm
Yep.
kidding.
And
Well
again,
said.
all this is going to filter back to the building committee. I just want to reiterate with folks, this is really, these meetings are long enough, but to get this job successfully planned, we need a lot of time with folks. So it's a lot easier to get down into the nitty gritty with some smaller groups, bring it all back to the building committee, and there'll be regular updates at committee meetings on what are we talking about MEP, what are we talking about site, what are we talking interior, exterior. So it'll all come back to this committee. I think we have what we need.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll keep populating this work plan. And as we go through them, I'll strike them out as we finish them, and I'll move them if we don't finish them. And I'll just keep going. It's a much longer plan, but I'm only showing you to the first next meeting and then a little bit beyond. So it'll keep getting populated as we move forward. But once we have the working groups, it'll be a little bit more like I'll get to them directly and give them the information right off with when the dates are. You'll probably just see this as a background with reports. Back to just the overall schedule. We talked a little bit about when the user meetings are when the user group meetings are gonna occur. This is all has been slid a little bit forward, so I'm a little bit more eager to get this started because last time we were further back. I had these starting in the end of February and early March, and now we're in mid-March. So I feel like I'm a little bit now under the gun to get really going on these. So, and then we have that bar for the actual user interviews is beginning in, as I said, beginning in April and going through early March.
Just to make sure everyone's understanding at least the language we use, the working group meetings are committee, city, school. User, when we say user, it usually means school. So a lot of the user meetings are meeting with teacher groups, administrative groups, et cetera. And we're really talking nuts and bolts of how the school works. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Teachers and staff. Yep.
And we've done a round already in feasibility with them. So this would be round 2, whether it's the same group or not, we'll look to you guys to tell us. But this is 2, I think we usually do 4 rounds total throughout the design. So this will get us to, previously we just talked about general building topics. Now we'll start to talk about where their space might be in the building now that we have, floor plans that we're moving forward and how big their space is based on the space template. So we'll start to get into more detail. And then the next round, we'll actually have layouts within the room to talk about and systems to talk about. So it just dives deeper every single time. And then the final one's kind of, set in stone, any last minute changes, and then sign off on the final layout of each space. So just for everyone's knowledge, that's kind of the progression of these.
In most of this, we will be filtering through you, Dr. Kelly, and I think John, Jennifer, Carl on various capacities will come in and out of that. But I think going through the people on the committee who are in the school to say what are the right faculty groups to bring into these is what we plan to do.
Sounds good.
So I'll take over from here. So we're moving right into schematic design as we talked about last time. Those that were here in February saw some of the precedent images and the concept. So we're going to give you a site update, some building plan updates, and tell you what we've been up to. So Dan, I'm gonna ask you to keep driving just so we don't have to switch screens again. Just as a reminder, I think most of you saw this diagram from the site circulation kind of at the tail end of the PSR phase, once we had definitively decided the project would be on the Wonderland site. We looked deeper at some of the grading, recognizing that grading will be a major issue here, elevating the building. Just for reference, the circle numbers are proposed elevations. So recognizing the building would need to be elevated 10 or 11 feet high due to the flood plain. And also looking at site circulation and how we'd navigate getting up those 10 or 11 feet. So from that evolved a version of the site plan that I'm going to talk about tonight. There's another option underway that we're looking at, something that's possibly a little bit different. But if you want to go forward, Dan, I'll show what was put together at the end of PSR. And it's essentially the diagram just in a more formal and final version. So I'll walk you through the entry is on the far right across from the MBTA Wonderland, proposed stoplight there. You'd come in, thanks Dan. You'd come in and circulate around the baseball field. So the 2 fields are at +8. The red numbers are the vertical elevations. That street level entry is at +7, give or take. So about a foot higher. So you come into the site and rise about a foot. There's distributed parking, surface parking lots around both fields, both the multipurpose and baseball fields. And then as you rise up to the +15 that the building is on, and just for reference, I know I said 10 or 11 feet, we're talking off of sea level now. So the numbers are a little bit different, but they're the same verticality, if that makes sense. So the building's +15 off of the ocean, basically, off of sea level. So to get you up those 7 feet from the baseball field at +8 to the entry at +15, we have a vertical drive and then bermed in seating. Dan, would you point out on the baseball field, kind of on the west side, there's seating along that sort of 7-foot differential, as well as between the building and the multipurpose field to the north of the building, south of the field. Perfect, thank you. So using that difference in grade to kind of berm in some seating to spectate if there are sports being played there. So the cars would circle up around that middle island, which is basically built up as a grassy berm. Car drop would happen at the front entry, the main entry right there. Thank you, Dan. And then exit out and down along the campus road and back out onto BFW Parkway. The buses would not make that loop, but rather come around the building from the east. They'd come in the same way, travel around. Yep, nope. Go back and take a left. Yeah, and then come around there and drop to the south of the building. Just recognizing that car and bus drop from a safety standpoint, it's preferred to have them separate. Both of them enter into the heart of the school, that dynamic space that we keep talking about, that's connected to all the major program spaces. So both of them would enter into that space and allow students to then navigate their way around the building.
Don, is the bus drop covered? Is that
It can be, yeah. So we need some of the details of what's happening. Typically we'll cover at most entries for the sake of, weather protection. And if students need a little extra time getting out of the car, just to try to do their best. The bus drop, if we do have some sort of canopy or covering, obviously it would need to be much higher if the buses were to travel under it, or at least out to the sidewalk level. So to be determined, Diane, is that preferred?
Sure.
Because we could
Yeah, I
certainly
think
do it.
so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. What still needs to be worked out is some of the service area, whether it's down at the, plus, the parking level or up at the +15 level. So still sort of working through the service complexities there. There's a loop road that takes you all the way around. That's where Dan was trying to drive when I was trying to get the buses going. But there's literally a loop road both for fire and central just navigating the site. There are multiple outdoor learning spaces, both the learning courtyard between the gymnasium wing and the classroom bar. Thank you, Dan. And that can be elevated. We're looking at a version where maybe it terraces down, which could be quite nice. We have the outdoor learning up near the off of the multipurpose field, south of the multipurpose field, Dan, like kind of near the front entry. Yep. So there are multiple learning spaces to tie to the education, as well as multiple bioswale spaces. And we recognize this isn't enough to control all the stormwater. We need to study the stormwater closely and recognize that that's not enough to capture all the stormwater, but looking at structures maybe under the multipurpose field and or baseball field that can help capture some of that. So that's very much underway and going to be a big topic at some of the site working meetings that we just started to set up. And then you've got those tennis courts and surface parking. We still have under building parking, which really is at I think it's at the +2 level. If my team's here, maybe they can correct me. But it's basically at grade, but under building, if that makes sense. And we have a floor plan that will demonstrate that in a moment.
Yeah, we talked about bringing that, right now that area of the site is about 4, which, then that's why the building's at 15. It's 11 feet higher than that 4.
Yep,
that we talked about potentially lowering that under building parking area by 1 foot or 1.5 foot or 2 feet to kind of start to try to balance out where we're filling the site, because we need to have basically a net zero fill site. We can't make anything higher or fill anything. We have to leave it exactly at the same kind of level. So anytime we build a pile like this pile, we need to have that negative somewhere. That same volume, that cubic footage volume has to be netted out to zero. So one way to do that is to take this whole entire footprint and basically chop a foot or a foot and a half out of that. And that'll give us some play as to where we can kind of berm up in some of these bermed areas. But that math is still underway.
Right. A couple other small things before I see if anyone has any questions. There's under building parking access from the west, those arrows. And there's also a navigating health and wellness pathway around the entire campus. And that will always be there, and the details of it will develop. But just want to recognize that that has not gone away. That's still part of the process, as well as working with the MBTA on a future train station. I know Dan's been in conversations with them about connecting to that. This doesn't necessarily recognize where that is because we don't know yet, but our plan is to, from a pedestrian standpoint, to definitely connect to that with the health and wellness pathway and campus connections. It's also worth noting from an accessibility standpoint that all of these walkways that navigate the +8 up to +15, they're all 1 in 20. So they're accessible pathways, which means that if one is using a wheelchair, they can navigate it safely. And it does not need handrails. It's shallow enough that one can travel along it independently. So I think that's a huge bonus, especially given some of the vertical challenges we're facing here. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dan.
Well, that's one of the things to mention about the size of the site and some of the discussions about shrinking this site down. We're trying to make it smaller. That's one of the luxuries of the site size that it's at right now, is that we're able to change the grade and massage the grades so that you don't have stairs and rails and ramps everywhere to get up to these elevations. There's enough run to get up to some of these, most all of this without rails, ramps, and stairs everywhere, which is really nice because you won't feel like you're approaching a building and going up a big staircase. You wouldn't really feel that difference from the entrance over here to that building entrance. That 7 feet is going to disappear versus if it was much, much closer.
That's a great segue to have Nazra highlight some of what we're building as far as a 3D model. So Dan, I put a placeholder in the presentation, which is this. But if Nazra is able to share her screen.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question? If we could go back to
absolutely.
the previous slide.
Do you need to go back to the
We don't
previous?
necessarily need to go back. I think I can
Okay.
verbalize it, but
Okay.
I'm thinking about staff entry. And they would likely be using the under building parking.
That's what we're assuming.
So would they enter in the same place as the parents and the buses? Because I'm just thinking if that might be a log jam. And I'm not sure if there's a street that runs all the way into the site from like running parallel to the railroad tracks. If we would think about making that an entry for staff.
If we can traverse that piece that we're not developing, and if we're able to get some sort of, rights to an extension of that, I forget the name of it, Brian, you may know it off the top of your head.
Dunn Road.
The street here,
Yes,
it
Dunn
comes
Road.
still about
Dunn,
there
right.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we'd
So
actually
Dunn
extend
Road-
further down than that.
And this is a perfect topic, Nick, that we're gonna follow up with you on talking site, because I think it's a good point. We might have some relief in off the backside of the site. Figuring out if we can and who uses it, I think will give us some flexibility here, going to the core of your question, Dr. Kelly.
Great,
And
thank you.
There's an existing right of way there that extends significantly into the site
here.
already. So,
oh,
yep.
great.
I think it gets here, if I'm not wrong. It like
think you're
cuts
right.
through till somewhere around here.
Great. So that's
Okay.
a perfect site working group conversation because we've identified that street and had conversations about it and said, could we potentially get students to not have to sit, or not just students, like anyone accessing the site to not have to either sit in traffic or be in the logjam that you allude to, Diane. There is down near the tennis courts that you can see on Nazra's screen right now, there is access there, but I do recognize it may not be ideal from that standpoint because you have to get around the rotary to come back to it. I think unless we do a turning lane, or there should be an additive stoplight at that intersection. That's the shopping plaza, yeah? And maybe
Yes.
there's a light there now, but when we met with Mass DOT, we definitely talked to them about crossing the road and having crosswalks and the light. So there's potential to have access there as well, to just come in the backside and get under the building for the staff, Diane. So
Okay.
some of that's still being determined based on traffic study, road access and site access. But that's
And
a great
Dawn,
question. Yeah.
you or Nell can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but what would probably be the faculty parking under the building has a significant stair up to the heart of the school, but it's separated from the main entry. So people will arrive at what feels like the heart of the school, but it should be, it should really break up the volume pretty good.
You're talking about from a people from a
Yeah, I
walk-
think that was part of what Diane was asking,
I see.
how are the teachers going to enter the building? And they'd be coming into the heart, but through a somewhat of a main stair from the garage, the parking level versus the main entrance.
And
Yeah,
there would
no
be elevator service there as well, I imagine.
Yeah.
I remember.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Apologies, I missed that detail, Diane, about entering the building versus entering the site. So
Yeah, I did.
I understood it as a car
No.
traffic problem.
That is what I meant on. I did mean
Oh,
a car
okay.
traffic problem, but that's helpful too.
Yeah, no, it's all good because we want the experience to be great, whether
Yeah.
they're coming by car or once they get out of their car. So great question, Diane, and it's definitely still something we need to study more and, get to the bottom of as far as access. So this is
If I can quickly
the,
just close the loop on Dunn Road.
oh, sure.
Just a
Thanks,
heads
Nick.
up, I want to just let you guys know that the Dunn Road actually extends down probably closer
Still
to
here.
almost the middle of that multi-purpose field. It goes further than that.
Oh,
It makes its
That's
way
fine.
almost down. It goes past, it ends, it's undeveloped right now, but it's makes its way on paper down to, past the first end corner of the Amazon building. So you're somewhere closer to
So somewhere
the
here.
multi-purpose
great.
field. Yep.
I'm not sure what that will do to the development to the north, whatever that future may bring, but that's really helpful. And if there's a way to provide another access point, I know that that's something that's of concern here, that you're sort of landlocked with the rail.
So
the
it's
rail-
existing
railroad.
city property, so I think that's beneficial.
Awesome. That's great.
Mhm.
Thank you, Nick, for that.
Okay, I will try not to make anybody dizzy.
So Nazra, you can certainly chime in. I'm just gonna set the stage. This is our site model that we've been building based on the site option that we just showed you. Just so that we can understand in a third dimension how this building looks and feels when it's one, elevated, and two, within the context of the city. So Nazra's been working her magic. From a massing standpoint, you can see the building. Maybe you could zoom in a little bit, Nazra, now that
Mhm.
we're I know it's a little bit jumpy because it's probably a large file, but you can start to see, and it's hard to even see the elevation. And to Dan's point earlier,
Well,
there's
I can,
enough-
I can
Yeah,
drive
there's
us
enough
through
land.
it a little bit so you can,
Oh, cool. Very cool.
you
Oh,
can
that's
get
great.
a feel of it.
Mm.
Okay, so hopefully it cooperates. It is a big file. And then you go to,
Looks like a windy day too.
I was gonna
I know, I
comment
was
on
gonna
the
say.
leaves blowing.
so this is the car loop, and I'm gonna zoom out a bit, go up, see, all the way to the main entrance. The berming that Don was talking about, you can see it goes up, but then it gets you from the 7 all the way up to the main entry without making it feel like a ramp.
And the building is just masked for simplicity, just for everyone's sake.
Yeah.
It's- Those are the
this
floor
is-
plates
yeah.
you're looking at. That's the 4-story classroom wing. And then the-
4-story volume versus 3-story.
So there'll be a
Mhm.
little bit of visitor parking, handicap accessible parking at the front, just for
Yep.
ease of not having to navigate the full
There's
site.
some here
Yeah, for visitors.
and there.
And so then that car loop follows back around. So you can, just in that view, you could see the built-in seating that I spoke about at the fields. There's enough property here that it doesn't feel like you're going up 11 feet, and we're intentionally trying to, make it feel natural. But standing here, you do see that a 4-story building that's elevated does feel substantial, but hopefully
Can I ask a quick question, Jerry?
Sure. Hi, Jerry, please.
How are you?
Good.
At it in comparison, and looking at the underground parking as well, do we have a number of parking spaces that are underground, as well as how many are on the site? It just doesn't look like there's enough, and I'm not sure if that's, I assume that's been calculated, but comparison to what we have now at the high school, how many parking spots are we?
It's 650 total is what we're carrying, and right now we're in the range of 350 under the building. It's not actually underground, it's just under the building, so it's kind of almost level. And then so it's in a way, it's almost surface parking with a building over it. And then we have another 300 that are in lots out and about around the fields. I think the existing parking is somewhere in the range of 488 or something.
480 was my recollection. Somewhere.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
this
so
is
we'd be
almost 200
looking at
more
a total
spots.
of 650 here?
650.
That's what we're targeting right now.
Yep, approximately half under and approximately half surface.
Okay.
Give or take, like 300 and change and 300 and change.
Diane, do you know what you have for total staff now, like every worker in the building? Because we went by some calculations, rules of thumb that are 12 to 15% of the enrollment. So it's going to be a larger enrollment in the future, but.
Exactly,
It
that's
is.
where I was going. with it.
Yeah, and typically it's only the juniors and seniors who drive. It's not all kids, because the younger kids don't have their license yet, but I would say that we're around, I know there's 150 teachers, and then we probably have like another 50 admin staff, puts you at 200, and then another, I'm trying to think of all the different groups, like the transportation department. If they end up over here, cafeteria. Yeah, I'd say about 300, John Perella, would you say that's right?
Yeah, I would say that's probably even conservative.
Yeah.
Because that's still parking all around. You think about there are a couple different lots around the building.
Yeah.
Right. So
But I think that having 650 spaces will be, I think the greater impact will be for the community use. Like if we have an event at night, even if we have like parent-teacher conferences, we always run into a jam with parking when we have parent-teacher conferences. And so increasing that capacity will be great.
So that was all, we were looking at the underground parking. That is all parking, which is on grade, sorry, not underground, but
Is
it's
that
under.
Brian Dakin I saw walking across the parking lot? It looks like him.
It looks like him.
Good work, you was. Yep.
And then, yes, so basically the entry side of the building, it berms up, whereas the back side, it's obviously open to let the water out. These are some of those bioswale moments. That's one. We can look at bus access, which you come up. And that's the plaza and a door that gets you in. We have tennis on that side. The fields are at 8. I think there's like a view from baseball pretty much. Pretty far out, but that's what you would see.
Any request for views while Nazra's driving?
Yeah.
Anything anyone want to see? I mean, granted, this is, you know, in its simplified to understand the site and the verticality and the differences in grade to actually model it. So,
I'll request a quick one. How about from the
Yeah,
middle
please.
of the Rotary?
oh, the middle of the Rotary. Sure. Like you're sitting in traffic having a coffee.
Exactly.
Staring at it.
Yeah.
Just sort of a, how does it address the road? How does it address the plaza out in front of it? I think that's, as these things come together, this is interesting stuff to see.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see.
I think he's wanting
Yep,
to be
no,
going
this
south
is
around
good.
the Rotary.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
sort of-
there's
Oh,
a
you want to
north.
go south? Okay.
Yep, no, from
All
right
right.
out on that street, basically, that's the perspective I think would be interesting for
There you
people
go.
to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully
put
you're not
yourself in the
looking at-
car.
You don't want to be looking at the building when you enter that Rotary.
I don't think we see it. Let me try. Hold on. Let me control it a bit. I'm in a building across the street. Okay. You would see it. I have very dense trees. I have like 40-year-old trees. But
In
yeah,
the winter,
it's
you'll see
quite-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, good point,
And
though. These
before-
trees will
Yeah,
be much
those are
smaller
old
when we
trees.
plant
They're
them.
gonna be much smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. at
Well,
least
when
for
they
a
start,
while.
they will be, but eventually they'll
Yeah,
get big.
eventually
Eventually,
they'll mature and then you would
Mhm.
have this quite majestic view. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I think
I really love the idea of having all of this green space and trees and place to move and feeling like it's an actual place, a location. Because the current high school is it's just like a cement blob.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice campus.
Yeah, and we're trying to buffer if you think about the site plan that I showed, and if Nazara were to zoom out a little bit, we're trying to buffer the street level with, even though the health and wellness path, so that you don't feel like you're on the VFW Parkway or,
Yeah.
on the surface road of the campus. We've even talked about maybe the road and the sidewalk separate and you have this like planting buffer. So I keep talking about the, if anyone's walked around Alewife Station, like you're at a major rotary, there's a train station, there's all this traffic going on around you, but the way that was, that walkway over there at Alewife Parkway was designed, you can literally be right down from Route 2 and not feel like you're, right next to a car. It's so beautifully well done that, the health and wellness connection to this wants to have that same look and feel.
Yep.
So-
And even some of this boundary to the main road kind of berms up. So if you're standing
berms.
here, you don't feel like you're on the side of a highway. But
Right. And you don't see the entry until you come onto campus. You'll know that there's a building there, but and this will come from the plan discussion that I'm about to have. But Nazar, will you point out where the auditorium is in this particular? You can kind of see the fly there.
Yep, it's right
on the
here.
north there. It's sort of orthogonal with the heart of the school on the north-south axis of the building. When I spoke last month about some of the precedents, and remember we talked about the exterior of the auditorium kind of being an architectural feature, and we got some feedback on that, which was great to hear. We're looking at a plan version that rotates that auditorium. This shows the orthogonal as it was shown in at the end of PSR. But what would that do as you kind of come onto campus, you see this piece of the building, it ties it nicely to the heart of the school from the inside, but also becomes an element on the outside that's like, says, hey, come check me out. I'm right near the front entry of the building. It kind of gives you a destination as you're on the campus. So that has yet to be sort of developed from a site standpoint, but from a building standpoint, we're studying it and you're about to see it in the floor plans. So
You can stop sharing unless anyone has any questions.
yeah, any other requests?
One thing I see lacking is something we get a lot of requests for, and we even get, COVID or no COVID, some outdoor spaces with some shade. And I do see a ton of trees, and that does produce a lot of shade, but I'd be looking for some outdoor spaces that you could actually take a class to.
Yep.
And create some outdoor classrooms that are protected from rain or sun, so some more shade structures that would present the opportunity to bring a class outside or get some people outside who don't technically need to be in the sun, especially around the sporting fields and things like that. A lot of the older spectators, I see them, they come up, they set up umbrellas, they find whatever shade they can be, and they go after it. So any type of, natural, shade barriers, I should say non-natural, but some more roofing structures, like some outdoor, shaded areas that people could collaborate in.
That's a great point, Carl. We will definitely incorporate more of that. Thank you. Great point. Okay. Dan, do you mind driving since you still have it open? Just on the floor plans. What's that?
So thank you, Nazar. Good driving. I didn't get sick.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And great job with the model, Nazra. She's doing a great job. Okay, so these are some diagrams and precedents. I took the ones that were not as appealing off, but just as a reminder, we talked about sort of the anatomy of the wave and how it ties to, the Revere Beach and the history of Revere and just some of the precedents, but wanted to remind you the yellow auditorium space is what I was just hinting at, and looking at the rotation of that, as well as that upper curve, the blue dotted arrow to the north, looking at going from an orthogonal gym building to more of a natural curves, similar to the academic wing. So if you want to go forward for me, Dan, I'm just going to set the stage with the PSR plan, which is this, but show you that the rotation of the auditorium to the right, and then the curve of the gymnasium wing, just in keeping with the sort of anatomy of the wave concept. If you would move forward to where we are currently studying, Dan, the next slide.
We have a question. Ralph, you have a question?
I think that is to wait till public comment.
It's
Okay.
not, it's not, well, this is kind of important about, because you were doing the driving. It's not gonna be something nasty, Dr. Kelly. It has to do, I know we were doing common air, we were having a community area. I was trying to see where that was in the layout, because it's kind of relative. I wanted to see where the accessible parking was in relationships to that. Because I know there was accessible parking at the main entrance, but I thought in the community area was going to be cordoned off from the building. That was going to be a separate entrance. So I wanted to see if there was accessible parking located where that's going to be.
Well, I can answer a piece of it. I think that when we're talking about the parking under the building, we'll need to have accessible parking there. And that's why I asked about the elevators, to make sure that coming up into the heart of the school from that parking area would be accessible to anybody who needed.
So for the common area,
elevators.
so the common area is going to be, because I know in the initial calls, we were going to have the community area was going to be, wasn't going to be access to the rest of the school. Has that changed?
No, but the community area will be connected to that whole heart of the school piece.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Diane. I was unsure what the community space that was being referenced.
Yeah,
If
that's
the
where
heart of
we
the
are
school
talking
and all
about-
the public space. Okay.
Right, like you kind of show it right here, the auditorium, the music wing, the common community health. You know what I mean? Like all of that would be theoretically used by, in the CAF Commons, used by the community after school hours.
And that's what I thought, but I didn't want to assume that's what Ralph's question was about.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was a specific space like community health. So just for reference, there will be accessible parking near the main entry, down with access to the community health, as well as under the building. And then obviously at the dispersed parking areas throughout like each parking lot will have accessible parking. So there will be at least code minimum, which is 5%, but there potentially could be more just based on how many different parking lots we have. So very much at the forefront of what we're thinking as far as access and universal design. So thank you. Okay, great. So from the previous PSR plan, you can see that the auditorium rotated to have sort of a better connection to the heart of the school, more direct access. And we've got this large stair that could be used for performances or community gatherings, school gatherings. that leads out to this exterior courtyard. So both from a north-south access and connection, both from the secondary entry as well as the main entry, we also have these connections to the outdoors on the west side to the courtyard, and then connection to the auditorium. So what that did, and then you can see that the gymnasium wing sort of curves out to create this like, you know, a widened courtyard that hopefully will connect to the landscape nicely. So while you're in that heart of the school, although you'll be elevated from grade, you'll have direct outdoor connection. And that courtyard will be used for many different things and will be developed much further as far as what's actually in there. But the connection to outdoors becomes critical through that heart of the school. And you can see that the curve of the gym is subtle in the same way that the curve of the classroom bars are also subtle. But for the most part, not a lot of the program has shifted around, a few things here and there. The music classrooms had to rotate based on the auditorium rotated, but it's all still directly connected and easy access to the stage as it always was for their use for performances. Do you want to go?
The
Go
one
ahead,
thing
Jen.
I'm wondering about on this is I think that what we had talked about, if it's even possible to do, is have the auditorium set up so that almost the stage is two-sided. So there could be indoor performances and outdoor performances. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and we've definitely talked about that, and our team is pushing so hard to still make that happen. It becomes,
Okay.
I'll tell you where the challenge is and why we're still struggling with it. Haven't quite resolved it yet, but it comes up in every conversation we have. Because the building is elevated, you need to get that land up to it so that it's not like on stilts at the front, if you can imagine. But then what you want to do is have that stage elevated and have the seating go back down. So, or I'm sorry, go up from there, because you want people to be able to look down at any sort of performance that would be on the two-sided stage. So we're just struggling with, you're already built up and then you're building up more. So we're still working through it, and we still are like, that's our goal to make happen. So I'm glad you brought it up, because every site plan we look at and every option we are studying, that's still something that we're saying, how can we make that happen? So great observation, and we're struggling, but we're working really hard to try and make it happen. So we
Okay,
haven't
thank you.
forgotten, and I do think it will be a huge asset to this building. So, and Bob's not chiming in, but I know between he and I, we bring it up literally every time we talk about the auditorium. So we're still working on it.
Okay,
Fingers
thank you.
crossed we can make that happen. You are welcome. We'll see if we can work our magic. And if we can, we'll fly through it next time with Nazra's help.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on the first floor? I'm gonna buzz through the upper floors, because not a lot has changed except for the rotation of the auditorium and the curve of the gymnasium. The art and tech rotated above the music, but not a lot of the program has changed actually at all. Some of the openings to below to have that verticality connection through the heart of the school. Some of the geometries change, but nothing substantial.
Has a significant roof, there's a pretty good sized roof terrace in this.
There
option.
is. And
The garden
Nell,
lab on the second floor.
yep, and Nell has pointed out that little arrow. It's probably hard for you to read on the graphic, but it says ocean views, like from that terrace, you can see out to the east and get ocean views. So that could easily be used for outdoor easel work, or, you know, maybe some, you know, you have a garage door space that on a nice day like today, 60 degrees, and the kids can go outside and you know, do whatever program they're doing, art and tech, you know, could be maker space or something that the students can just sprawl out and do work on. So I think that would be a wonderful space to be on.
I'm gonna back up on you too. Because we didn't really talk about the terrace. We didn't talk about the terrace courtyard.
Yeah, so in this study, because again, we're continuing to look at how this all connects together. The auditorium connects to this, you know, community stair that has a that yellow. Yep, thanks, Stan. performance space. So like a small either platform or something that students could literally sit on the community stair and watch some sort of, impromptu performance, think Glee or something, whatever, or a more formal performance, just recognizing it's in the heart of the school and it's open for all to see. But then that connects directly to what we're trying to do is to terrace down the exterior courtyard so that that first piece under the words would be at the +15 that the building is at. And then it could step down and take you to a lower level. Maybe that's an outdoor classroom or a covered, to Carl's point, a covered area that's, you could take a whole class or two out and, maybe they're doing a science project or something out there, and then terrace down to grade by the end of the wings. That would take you down to actually the road level. So with that, it affects some of the parking, and you'll see at the end, there's a parking plan that's recognizes some of those extractions from the the parking under the building. Because once you terrace down, you can't put parking under the lowest level. So we're still working on that, but that's one component to this. As you're at the main level, you're elevated, and how does that then connect down to the landscape? So that could be quite a dynamic and exciting space as well. Thanks, Dan, for pointing that out. We'll cut a section through that as we develop it further, so you can kind of see how that all will connect. And you'd also, for what it's worth, is if you want to go back up to the second floor, Dan, that second floor CAF Commons would look down on that. So from both that tech space as well as the white area. Yeah, perfect. So if you're just kind of walking from one wing over to the gymnasium, you're still connected looking down on that terraced courtyard.
One thing that's nice about that terrace is when you're driving around the back of the building, rather than seeing a sea of columns, which is what in the underground parking, that terrace would come down to meet you. So you would only really see that part, to perceive that parking at the actual building portions.
Right, the north and south of that. Yep.
You would see it here, and
There,
you would see
and
it
then
here, but
there.
you wouldn't see that elevation like that all the way along this edge.
Yeah, you'd kind of see, landscape and then stepped up and landscape. I think one of my precedent images showed a sort of a terraced component to one of the schools. Thanks, Dan. So do you want to go up to 3? Not a lot has changed program wise. We still have the media commons here. And again, that would look down on that courtyard from the heart of the school. There's vertical openings that connect you down. So while we're 3 and 4 stories tall, we're still trying to make all these connections vertically through that heart of the school. The art and tech again is to the north. That would be 1 story up from that roof terrace that we were just talking about. They could easily go downstairs and use it though, if needed. We could have access off the heart of the school if that was desired. You want to go up to the 4th floor, Dan? Nothing literally has changed here. And then last, I think I put the parking after just because I wanted to highlight some of the auditorium moves. But you can see that the terrace has taken some of the underground parking. So we're at 334 instead of 350-ish here. So we're still balancing surface parking and under building parking to get us to the 650 that we're targeting. And those orange arrows just describe where a car may have access in and out. So it would only be from the west, because if you imagine the fly through that Nazra took us, the front is bermed into the hill. So you don't even know that there's parking under there because it's up against earth. So yeah, along there.
Nice.
So that was the building update, site and building. We're obviously looking at some massing and starting to think about materials because that's all going to be underway with the interior and exterior working group. Any questions, any concerns, anything anyone wants to point out or have us look at? Nothing?
No, it looks great.
Great, thank you. I mean, we're still studying, a few things, and as some of these working groups and user group meetings happen, it'll ever evolve until we get to the end of SD to put a pricing set together, which is later this summer, but we're very much underway with schematic design. No rest for the weary.
No, it might be good to note that the service in this scheme, in these schemes, the service area and entrance is actually being shown at the lowest level, the garage level.
Yeah, so when I pointed out the site plan study, I know that there were conversations, maybe it's best to have it at the +15, the first floor level. Here it tucks nicely at the parking level, the street level, is that
Plus, it's
+4?
basically +4.
+4 at that point, and then
Mhm.
you have a
Yeah.
loading dock. So anyway, some of the numbers are lost in my brain right now, but basically you could back up from that surface road into the service area and have room for dumpsters, compactors, and some large 18-wheel deliveries as well. But
One
the,
bonus of this is that so this free space down here for receiving area and storage space, that is not going to exist on the first floor because of the
Right.
MSBA guidelines will come into play on the upper floor.
but the downside is you have to go vertical with everything.
Downside
which
is you have to
frankly, in
take
a
an
4-story
elevator to get up
building, you're gonna
to
have
the
to
next
do at
floor.
some point anyway, but yeah. So,
So we're showing a freight elevator coming down into this level.
Carl, what are your thoughts on that?
My initial thought is to thinking about the food, and I really can't see or visualize where the food comes in. Our biggest receiving on a regular basis is food and milk and, you know, the perishables and the things that are gonna be frozen immediately and come in frozen and things like that. So that's just the path that we need to really think about and say, okay, yeah, the 18-wheeler backed in, but what's our path to a freezer, or what's our path to a non-perishable shelf that the food industry is going to be dealing with? And not only that, just the holding area for things that don't need to go right into a food, because what we deal with now is a lot of, okay, here's the truck, game plan is get it off the truck and then figure out where it's going. And that's a constant process all day long on a regular basis. But we do need some type of holding area to say, okay, this just came off the truck, but there's another truck right behind it. So there needs to be some, you know, whether the MSBA is paying for it or not, but some reality of these things come in, they don't disappear once they get off the truck. There needs to be some type of plan to either store them or move them to where they need to go.
One thing
So the
nice about this is that
the kitchen
Go ahead.
area is right above this, correct?
that's correct.
That's
Could
right.
the freight,
Correct.
could the freight elevator go right up into the kitchen? Could it be designed that way?
That's
That's
the
what
way
we're
we have
showing.
it.
Mhm.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's hard to see because it's so small,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
right
it's
here.
right
It's
there.
just-
Not
this little
division,
ant
but I
right
mean,
there.
that's the game plan, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really need to think, take it in, hold it, and then get it to where it needs to go. But you can't have somebody in another truck waiting for you to do that. It needs sometimes, you need a little bit of holding space to receive. That's why they call it shipping and receiving. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, doesn't happen at the same exact time. It's kind of a process, but so far, everything looks great. I love it. I think, you know, as you get into the nitty gritty, we'll be looking at, you know, other stuff as far as things like snow and how snow, I'd love to see the way we were driving around that whole thing. I'm thinking, okay, where do you plow? How do you plow? Where do you build piles? And where can you not build a pile and things like that? It's right now, I see it very functional. You know, and as we move forward, I think it just take those little things that we have at some schools that really work, whether it's the way they put the curb in or whether it's the way they didn't put the curb in, but certain things of the, you know, how the building's gonna function, I think we just gotta get into the details. Everything else looks very, very good.
Yeah. What is the thing that's like almost in the middle of, yeah, right there. What is that?
Two elevators
elevator-
and stair.
Elevator
Okay.
and stair bank, the elevator bank and stair that Bob mentioned that would take
Okay.
one
Yeah.
up into the heart of the school. Yep.
Okay.
So this would probably be this area would probably be a secure vestibule. But I
Yeah.
think you're gonna need a secure vestibule at the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would be the elevators and stairs up. And then those, I think, drop right by the admin, if I'm not mistaken.
You could go back to the first floor. I think that's
will.
at the edge of the auditorium. Yep.
There it
Yeah,
is,
they
right
pop out of
there.
the auditorium, but we can.
Yep.
That's actually perfect.
Right. One other thing I was thinking about, I'm glad we backed up to this, is the music and auditorium and stage area could really use some vehicle access to the back or side entrances to it. There's a lot of times that we're bringing in, you know, whether it's stage equipment or moving music equipment in or out or things like that, that if there's a way to access that area from the exterior, it would be helpful if possible. I know the elevation is
that's-
a challenge, but if there's
Yeah.
vehicle access to that area of the building.
It kind of has this, right, there's an exit right here, and then this is
There
actually
is.
at the entrance line, right?
Yeah,
So this,
that's a
I
good
think
point.
is very, it's probably almost flat,
Right.
very
Mhm.
slightly.
So
pitched.
could we make
So
like a
there is that
little,
access.
like a wider sidewalk there that actually a vehicle could back into and
Yeah.
do what Carl's saying?
Yep.
Yep.
So full disclosure, the site has not caught up with the building because that's how that's how this works.
Yeah.
So
But we'll keep
yeah,
that in mind. that you
absolutely,
need that,
that's a
you wanna
great
have
point.
that.
Yeah,
I
and
just
I
wasn't
think
sure of the elevation there, but I mean, that's just fully functional is when you're moving stage props and, you know, sometimes our band and music classes will take their things and go play at the beach, or they'll go play at another school or another, you know, location. And it'd be great to be able to have almost a loading dock functional area that could possibly be used for other things that access that whole wing of the building, but geared towards that music side of the building there.
yeah, great point, Carl. We'll study that. Anything else?
No, but I am gonna push us a little bit because it's 6:54 and I want to honor
We're done.
everybody's time.
Yep,
We're
so
done.
that parking slide was the last slide, except for the
Okay.
closing. Yep, so that's the end of what we had. I'm just looking to answer any questions or any concerns or any feedback, so. If there aren't any, then I'll turn it back over for
I think public comment is the next thing on the
public
agenda.
comments and, yeah. I see Ralph's hand up.
Yeah, Ralph,
I'm
your
not
hand's still
sure
up,
who's
is that-
gonna, Brian.
You're out. Is that an old hand up, Ralph? Are you good? He's good.
Same hand.
I just had two quick comments to make. One with the talk of the Dunn Road and the Dunn Road extension, there would probably, I'm not sure how access is good, you're looking to access Dunn Road, but I know Sagamore off of Revere Street right now, it's in the books and the ordinance that Sagamore Street is only open for residents between 7 and 9 o'clock. So that's something that would have to
That's
get
a good point.
changed if you're looking to have teachers get
Uh-huh.
gone to Dunn Road for that. So I just want to make a comment on that. And secondly, if that does get done, I'm hoping that Dunn Road would have like some type of a gate with a key card for faculty to be open and only be able to access that if you're going to use it just for faculty or things like that. That would be good. This way you won't have so many cars protruding through the residential neighborhood down there, because I know that has been a big issue down there, and that's why they had changed Sagamore. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Ralph, I think that's a great point. And that was in the back of my head. I think if we can succeed on getting the Dunn Road to connect, I personally think a key to that is probably going to be limited access. It might end up being just staff, might end up being something else, but knowing those streets between I think exactly what you're talking about is what we'd have to look at. And the other reason is we don't want to start creating cut-throughs around lights where suddenly every commuter in the world knows there's a little shortcut. So I think chances are if we connect in the back, it'll be controlled access with cards or something else, some type of gate.
Thank you.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Seconded.
Thanks, Carl. All right.
I've never seen a motion to adjourn fail. I've been waiting for it, but it's never happened.
All right, roll call. Stacy Rousseau.
Yes.
All right, Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
John Perella,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
and Jerry Visconti.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion to adjourn approved. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a
everybody.
great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Make sure you have a pint of Guinness before you go to sleep.
Cheers, everyone.
Well, I got one started for me already. It's waiting for.
Enjoy, Carl. Yeah, cheers.
Enjoy it.